wherever you want, along with millions of podcasts from the news you crave to the true crime series you can't resist. Playlists to fit any mood or activity. And here's the part you don't want to miss. It's all free. Download the free iHeartRadio app and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, whichever one of those is where you're able to best get at us. That's the right place for you as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderland and talk about the issues that affect us here, because no one else is going to have that kind of discussion, that real perspective on what is important to us that live here in the region and experiences issues than we are. A whole lot of people always trying to tell us how we should feel, what our opinions are, those kind of things. Yeah, sure. If you got a great polling service, I'd love to know where you're getting that from, because otherwise discussion, digging into the issues, we don't shy away from it, and we take that on more or less every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do. Already joining us over on the social media, Flaco Jimenez, dropping that like. Do appreciate it as we, again, get into a whole lot of issues today on the docket for today. Among other things, going to be delving into some of those election financials. I know it may sound dry as hell, but the point behind it is how much gas left in the tank do a bunch of the actual congressional campaigns do. Again, good afternoon to Flaco Jimenez there as well. Also, Robbie Flores over on the social media. Do appreciate it. So crunching some of the numbers, looking at what it means as we are in that last real month of campaigning. Because sure, once early voting starts, which is coming up, that's the real kind of crunch time. But well, of course, the final exam, so to speak, is definitely on election day, and of course counting down to our election day coverage as well, that we'll be bringing you throughout that afternoon as in evening, along with our regular coverage. But that's only one of the things we're going to talk about. I, of course, want to update you on the situation that was happening on the Stanton Street Bridge, more or less during one of our programs last week. So of course, want to get the update on that. Or was that earlier this week? It's all a blur. In any case, the one that happened previously that we talked about on air, we'll get into that as what some of the updates there. Of course, what some of the border security and immigration issues are looking like now, according to the city's migrant crisis dashboard. And then just a whole lot more, of course, a whole lot more from our news partners there at KFOX 14, delving into some of the more specific, and waving to Robbie Flores there over on the social media as well. Flaco Jimenez saying, yep, early voting starts on the 24th. We are right on the cusp of it. So the countdown is on, even though, yeah, again, crunch time and then final exam time is, I guess, the way I kind of feel like it. Feels like that on this end anyway. And if you, wow, think that you really got all the answers there, I sure hope you're right, because we'll keep discussing them in any other case with Louis Pinado chiming in there. But so also some updates from, of course, our news partners at KFOX 14 on both some of the investigative stories being worked on, some out-of-town trips from Stephanie, and lately getting into at least some of the previews on what she's working on for you there, as well as some of the ones that we have discussed and that are upcoming, as well as some of the big stories, including what's going on, some of the new updates anyway. Trying to get the whole encapsulation of what's going on involved in the district attorney's office would be a show into itself. So some of the more recent updates coming out there. So a whole lot to get into there. So we also have a Calvin Williams listening. And again, you don't have to chime in during the show, even though we appreciate the commentary. It gives me life energy, lets me know what you all want and don't want to hear, talk about, etc. So again, take it in stride, because there's a few things we're always going to talk about. Hint, hint, elections, voting, well-worn soapbox and all that. But if you got other things and knowing what y'all want to explore, it's helpful that way. So that's why we keep the comments going on. So that's also one of the better ways you can chime in throughout the program, is by chiming in over there. And yeah, and Eric McNabb putting climate change with creating flat earthers, that's not a road I'm going to follow you down on there, my dude. But if you want to chime in, you're more than welcome to, because flat earthers have definitely existed before this point here, and I make no claim to any of them, since, well, simply put, they're wrong. but in other ways, we'll keep talking about the issues that do affect us here in the borderland and are more based in reality than some of the other ones that we're discussing here. In any case, one of the ones I wanted to make sure to get to as part of our continuing election coverage is what exactly do some of these major campaigns look like, and what are the amounts? Again, gas left in the tank is the best analogy I can give it, because no, dollars does not necessarily equal votes. It can certainly influence votes, and more money gives you more ability to do those important campaigning activities, such as going out and having events, campaign offices, block walking, canvassing, calls. Those kind of things take time, energy, and sure, you can get by a good, decent amount with volunteers, but particularly when you start getting to the congressional races and where there are finance committees, national committees, a lot of money being spent, the more money means that you have more impact. Again, impact is what I'm focusing on here. Again, not necessarily votes, because yeah, if you got one dude donating $1 million to a campaign and one dude who has $100,000 from 100,000 different people, some disparity to be had there. But we're going to be particularly looking at 3 of the major congressional races. But before we get to that one, of course, wanted to mention what was going on in that Stanton Street Bridge incident that happened. Okay, it was last week. I'm not too insane anywhere. As Clore saying 10 by 10 and on the side. Absolutely. And Monica Cervantes, I appreciate the comment there as well. So that Friday, the shooting Friday afternoon at near the Stanton Street Bridge, identified as 32-year-old Maxwell Billingsley of Kenyattio, is the man who was involved as not necessarily the one firing the shots, but again, according to our news partners at KFOX 14 here, from the police reports on this, Billingsley and his 64-year-old mother were riding in an SUV waiting in line along the Stanton Street Bridge to cross into Mexico. And that's when police alleged Billingsley assaulted his mother and pushed her out of the SUV. And the mother then asked a security guard for help on the area. And then again, according to the police, again, Billingsley recklessly drove his SUV, hitting other vehicles when the security guard approached him, and specifically is alleged as driving the SUV towards the security guard. And that's when the security guard reportedly shot his firearm, injuring Billingsley, who was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. An initial bond set at $80,000. Of course, further updates that have come along with that is that there was actually then afterwards a bond reduction happening for accused of specifically assaulting his mother on the Stanton Street Bridge. And some images, again, from our news partners there at KFOX 14, being able to see the bond hearing still happening virtually, which is a little bit wild that that's the way this still works. And some more details coming along the incident here. And saying he also did try to escape custody while he was trying to escape, while he was in that hospitalization. So the bond reduction was actually, to correct myself, denied, given all of those things going on with it. So yeah, more than a little bit of weird situations, but particularly in reference to one of the comments coming from you all during that about security in the area. Apparently there was a security guard on the bridge at that point in time. So whether or not that was something that influenced or mitigated the situation, I guess that's more of a debate to be had, but at least wanted to bring that up. But again, some of the campaign finance reports I wanted to mention here, of course, focusing on the 3 major congressional campaigns that are, well, within our listening area anyway. The New Mexico 2nd District, covering all of southern New Mexico, all the way up to Albuquerque, and it's kind of got this weird crown shape these days, so about half of New Mexico. And then, of course, the Texas 16th Congressional District and 23rd, which represents, well, the entirety of El Paso County between them. The Texas 16th Congressional District, more the urbanized parts of the county, at least where you see like city streets, and pretty much, if I'm not mistaken, the entirety of the city of El Paso. I'll need to double check that for sure. But then the Texas 23rd, which stretches from pretty much the lower valley and the entire eastern border of El Paso County all the way to the edges of San Antonio. Some interesting numbers there, starting with the New Mexico 2nd, just to make it so we're not missing out on that, showing a bit of disparity in the fundraising numbers, at least for cash on hand. Again, that like gas left in the tank number, though closer than some other races we'll talk about. Of course, that incumbent Republican Representative Yvette Harrell, she has, for the coverage period ending as of the end of last month, which is what those campaign finance reports have come out, are about $3,843,000, so about 3.8 and change $million raised, versus her opponent, a Democrat challenger and a former Las Cruces city council member, Gabriel Vasquez, also known colloquially as Gabe Vasquez, raising about $2.7 million for that same period. So little bit of a disparity, but within the same order of magnitude, which is not always the case. And then some of those very important numbers, pretty well similar also on the amount of money spent. Harrell about $2.8 million spent, and Vasquez about $2.4 million spent. So that leaves the cash on hand. Yvette Harrell has about $1 million and change, $1,085,000 left, whereas the Vasquez campaign has about call it $300,000, a little bit less than. So what that means for the end of the campaign and what they're able to do, and again, goes into some of those activities, canvassing, campaigning offices, mailers, those kind of things. But then getting a little bit closer to home, at least where our station and broadcast facilities are concerned, the Texas 16th Congressional District, of course, their Democrat incumbent Representative Veronica Escobar having raised, honestly, a lot less focus on these numbers. And another thing that you can often see with these is how much is expected to happen from these. Among other things, the New Mexico 2nd District is considered a toss-up district by a lot of the handicapping we look at. So that's where you can see probably a lot of out-of-district area money flowing in. So when it comes to the Texas 16th Congressional District, there again, Representative Escobar, Democrat, holding that one, about $1.1 million raised up until the end of last month through this campaign period, with about $500,000 left on hand. And then, of course, for Republican challenger Irene Armendariz Jackson, raising about $333,000 and change, with about $91,000 left in cash on hand. So again, take from that what you will. Does not necessarily equate to votes, but certainly sets a bit of a trajectory. And then, of course, we have in the Texas 23rd Congressional District there, Republican incumbent Representative Tony Gonzalez. Again, Tony Gonzalez, just to make sure we're not getting anything confused with the El Paso city manager. Again, that one, a lot of funding going into there, raising about $3.8 million and about $1.2 million left in cash on hand. And his Democratic challenger, John Lira, about $600,000 raised and about $67,000 left in cash on hand. Of course, the Texas 23rd Congressional District has been considered a bit of a swing one in the past, but that was, of course, further before the most recent redistricting. So how this one will work out, well, let's just say some of the numbers, again, paint a bit of a picture that will be interesting to keep our eye on. So, of course, a lot more that we'll be getting into there. And Abel Rodriguez and more chiming in here and about the way they talk about financing money and those other kind of things. We're not even necessarily talking about the governor's races because that's a whole nother kettle of fish. Just wanted to focus on at least one of the sets of races in our area that, again, if you're anywhere within our broadcast area, you're probably going to have a chance to vote on. Yeah, good times. And we'll keep focusing on those, but got to take that first break of this hour right now. Coming out of this break, talking more, of course, with our news partners there at KFOX 14 about what some of the big stories in our area are. So stay tuned for more on that. So, of course, you are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Different questions coming up over on the comments going on our social media. We'll keep those going here, including mentions of some of the other interviews. We got more coming up. We'll announce. Don't worry. But in any case, calls later, and stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A big rig is blocking the right lane and causing a huge backup on the I-10 eastbound right after the Geronimo Drive on-ramp, I-10 eastbound. 12-minute delays on the I-10 eastbound for the downtown exits up to Geronimo Drive. An accident reported Paisano Drive eastbound at the 110. And downtown, there's a crash at Stanton and 4th Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Under Governor Abbott, Texas leads the nation in creating jobs. Law enforcement officers are respected and funded, and Governor Abbott is fighting to secure the border. Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Hi guys, it's Andrew with Northbrook Medical Clinic. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, we now have a major medical breakthrough you are going to want to hear about. The wave technology at Northbrook Medical uses gentle pressure waves to repair and open up blood vessels. There are 60 clinical studies, including from Cambridge, showing our technology treats the root cause problem of ED without any pills. If you're ready to put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and regain your love life, grab your phone and call us now. You'll qualify for the assessment, the exam, even the blood flow ultrasound, if you can believe it, totally free. And to the first 10 callers now, you'll get a gift that can produce powerful and rapid results in the bedroom. You're going to love that, trust me, guys. This is a $650 value free to callers now. 915-529-9000. That's 915-529-9000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your love life back. Call Northbrook Medical Clinic now to qualify. 915-529-9000.
A construction site is a noisy place where things can be misinterpreted. We need to redo the drywall. It can sound a lot like,
rewire the hole? They're firing, Paul.
wait, what did I do? Or even,
Install a waterfall. Whose dumb idea was this?
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building. Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, how about that drywall?
You want to be a showstopper like The Miz? You want to be awesome? Then you'll want to have a game plan. Whether you're a champion or a bettor, you got to be responsible. The DraftKings Sportsbook offers all the tools you need. You can set a realistic budget and bet within your means. You can set time, deposit, and wager limits so you can have a personal game plan for having fun while being responsible. I practice safe bets, and so should you. Visit DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming to learn about all these tools and more.
Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/responsible gaming for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM in this pre-recorded segment. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, but also find us under similar pages, also on Facebook, then YouTube, Twitter, and twitch.tv as well. Of course, talking more about the big news and stories of the day, but taking this time, as we do most Wednesdays right now, to check in with our news partners over at KFOX 14, specifically Estefania Seifert, investigative reporter with the same. Thank you very much for joining us here in studio today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely happy to check in with you. Glad that you are back in town in a variety of ways that we'll get to here in just a minute. But do appreciate, of course, when we had Erica Castillo filling in last week to talk about it, but definitely want to delve more into your investigative work and stories on here, including one that has still been kind of percolating in the background, because as much as there are the current elections we are focusing on, keep an eye on future ones is important, particularly the major amounts of public money that may be on them. So one you're focusing on earlier this week is, of course, kind of the future and fate of the bond in general, whether it be certificate of obligation or general obligation, looking more towards the latter, of course, at this point, based on the petitions and things, but that UMC/El Paso County Hospital District bond and the several $100 million that is at stake, even if that number will likely be adjusted. Some more clarity of a sort kind of coming out this week on, well, what that may be looking like next, and the next time it might pop up before voters.
Right. So the last time we touched on this, I think, was the beginning of the month when commissioners had a meeting in which we found out that the petition that was filed against this certificates of obligation proposal, that the signatures were verified. And so that did essentially end up superseding the commissioner's court. Right. And so in order for a potential bond to go through, it'd have to go through the voters. And I think there were a lot of questions as to whether this created an automatic election and how quickly that would come about, and what options UMC has. And so that's something that we looked into a little bit this week. And this does not automatically call an election. So this does not mean that in November that you'll see this on the ballot. We don't even know if UMC will decide to move forward with this. I had mentioned at the beginning of the month when we covered this, the ball is kind of in UMC's court. They're the ones who decide now they're the ones that we're waiting on to see if they will move forward with a proposal. It could be the same one, but through a general bond as opposed to certificates of obligation, or they could come back with, a different proposal, or they could just say altogether, we're not going to move forward. I had mentioned also that in speaking with Commissioner David Stout, he had said that he thinks if UMC were to move forward with the proposal, that he thought the best date would be November 2023, simply because that would be able to give UMC more time to inform the community about the proposal that they're putting out. Something that he also mentioned is that since UMC is technically a government entity, they cannot campaign in favor of the bond if they were to choose to move forward with the bond. So that is considered a political expenditure. And since they're a government entity, they cannot use money or resources, nor can the commissioner's court to advocate for this. Now, personally, and this is something that he mentioned, David Stout, that he personally, he would be in favor of the bond. And so he personally would advocate and with his time, to in favor of it, but he cannot use his office staff or his office to advocate for it, if that makes sense. So essentially, it's just different. It's a different take. You could say they might be even at like a disadvantage in the form of how they're able to get things out, because really they cannot, as a government entity, do that. If this goes to an election and it's voted down, they cannot come back to commissioners until 3 years. So there's a lot that UMC has to consider as to how they're going to move forward, because there are a lot of factors. And I think that's why it might be a while before we hear from them and what their decision will be. But I think as far as whether you all will see this in the November 2022 ballot or even in the December runoff ballot, that will not be the case. It does not look like.
Yeah, not going to be on this ballot here, though. Again, some of the potentials, of course, were for it to maybe be on the next May ballot, which would be the next immediate on separate election ballot here. But again, what you're saying is that Commissioner Stout, Precinct 2 for El Paso County Commissioners Court, calling for it to more likely be on the November one. And one final point I want to get into there, that it's interesting you point out there both the public education kind of side of it, or public outreach education, I should more accurately say, because we're not talking about school, but rather the information that UMC's put out. Of course, they've had some going on for this current effort, such as, websites, social postings, those kind of things, as here's the information on the bond as is put forth, as a distinct then difference from vote for the bond kind of things, like here's what involved in it. Now, I do want to further say that this does not mean that there can't be advertising in favor of the bond. That would mostly come from other organizations, other individuals. PACs could potentially be involved here. Haven't seen anything about that yet, but that will be the kind of thing where organizations could be involved in promoting it to come forth here. One other factor I want to mention is, of course, changes in costs that are expected, because even as we've had previous interviews with, of course, staff with the El Paso County Hospital District / UMC, there was an expectation that if this wasn't able to move forward immediately, that costs would increase. Roughly about 10% about the total and bond amount was what was expected if it had to go on to, say, the May ballot. And I think you can kind of extend that out even further if it would go on to November from about a year from now, though my crystal ball is as cloudy as ever, and I think a little bit of speculation starts coming into there. But some of the more distinct factors were about, again, 10% added cost of the total bond amount if it were to go on to the next successive ballot. And I think probably maybe not an order of magnitude more, but definitely I think it would be fair to say increased costs even beyond that if it were to go on to November.
Right. So, and that is something I asked the UMC spokesman when this meeting happened October 3rd. After we heard that the petition was verified, I asked him, what does this mean if UMC decides to move forward with a general bond? And he said, voters can expect there to be a higher cost to this simply because interest rates will probably be different than what they are right now. Also, from my understanding of the presentations that UMC has given, it's a process. It's not an automatic, okay, we got the bond money. It's they have to basically look at interest rates, and it's a whole process they have to look at that might take months. So it's also taking that into consideration, that even if they were to have gotten the green light, it would have still been a while before they actually are able to execute what they want. And so what they were trying to, say is that the longer it gets pushed, it really time, and not only is cost going to be affected, but also just the time in which it will get done. And so, I think that's why, as I mentioned, it might be a while before we hear back to see what the UMC board decides to do with regards to this proposal that they want for expansion.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Estefania Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14. If you want to see any more of her reporting, any more of these stories, go to kfoxtv.com and click under the KFOX 14 Investigates tab to find this and the other stories she's working on. Another one, of course, that I want to mention that we had talked about the previous time we had you here in studio was about the catalytic converter thefts, because surprising enough to me, I thought it was in the order of dozens, if not like maybe, up to $100. There are some of these that are actually pretty expensive given the rare earth metals and just rare and precious metals that are technically within them. I mean, you're talking about palladium, platinum in some cases, gallium, rare and fairly exotic metals that are required for emission standards. And that's why people are taking, power tools and chopping them off from under particularly larger vehicles.
Right. And it's so easy for them to do it because it's so quick. And so that's why we were seeing so many. I know we had reported a spike this time last year of catalytic converters. And so when I had noticed that spike, I had filed open records from January through the summer of this year, just to see, what parts of town were being hit the most by catalytic converter thefts. And so I did get a lot of documents back, a lot of police reports.
131 pages, I do believe, is part of the web story.
Yes, so it was a lot to go through, but I basically took all those addresses and I put them on a map to see, what areas, what zip codes are being hit the most. As you'll see there on the web story, the reports were from January 2022 through part of July 2022. And I included the reports there. So if you want to read the details of them, but the majority of the thefts were reported in the 79912 zip code, which is West El Paso. And that was followed by the 79925 zip code, which is East El Paso.
So again, keep in mind there. And essentially, if you've got your vehicle at all inaccessible, like in a garage, behind a fence, those kind of things, that was not really a factor in having these happen. I mean, it was pretty well mitigation factor. It was kind of large lots, those kind of things where these were happening, right?
Yeah. So it just looking at the incident reports and where they were filed from, a lot of them were businesses, and some of the descriptions on the reports did say that it was employees who were filing these reports for business vehicles. So they show up in the morning and they see that the vehicles aren't turning on. And then they realize, oh, well, the catalytic converter was stolen. And so, yeah, like you mentioned, they were probably in parking lots where anyone had access to them. It also appears that a lot of the vehicles were almost, bigger, So I guess me speculating that it's probably because it's easier to get under there, under a car to steal a catalytic converter. But I do have the list of all the zip codes where at least there was one catalytic converter theft reported. And pretty much, I mean, there were more than, I think, 20, let me see. Yeah, there were several zip codes reported. So, I mean, it is an issue happening all over town, but the majority of the reports filed were in East and West El Paso.
I think it was exactly 20 zip codes. So again, a bulk of them in one area or a couple areas, but doesn't mean that it's not happening more or less everywhere. If I was put up on a map, there may be a zip code or two that hasn't had it. But otherwise, yeah, be careful with how you're parking and then just feel the need to say at this point, we have a lot of cameras on this building, so don't mess around and find out, all I'm saying here. And of course, you do have a report coming up tonight focused on vehicles in a different way, I guess could be said.
Yeah, so I don't know if you all remember, there was a story we had reported on last year about a Sun Metro bus that crashed into a home in East El Paso, and this was at about just before 6 a.m. in February of last year. And so what we have now is the video, the surveillance video from inside the bus the moment that crash happened, as well as the driver's disciplinary record. And so all of that will be laid out for you tonight for my report.
Absolutely. And again, if you want to see that current story about a city bus crashes into East El Paso home is what we're talking about. That is dated from February 26th of 2021 and showing a bus definitely well inside the previously not a doorway part of a house there. So, I mean, the fact that this happened and the video and the pictures of that is interesting. So I'll be very interested to see what the actual inside of that video looks like. So again, that coming up, KFOX 14 news at 9 tonight, and of course the web story over on kfoxtv.com. Again, guest right now is Stephanie Cipher, an investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14. Coming out of this break, got to take that one right now. We'll talk more about some of the other big stories happening in and around our region, so stay with us and stay tuned for more Talk El Paso again after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with a KFOX 14 News Update. The funeral mass for Jacob Arellano, a police officer from Dallas who was killed last week, happened in Richardson, Texas this morning. Arellano died on October 12th on his way to work in a wrong-way crash by a suspected drunk driver. The 25-year-old is from El Paso, where he played football in high school and in college. He leaves behind a fiance, a young son, mother and father, and 3 siblings, including an identical fraternal twin brother who is also a police officer with the Dallas Police Department. Arellano will be brought to El Paso. A funeral mass is scheduled Friday at 11 at the St. Peter's and Paul Catholic Church in Socorro, followed by burial at Mount Carmel Cemetery on Saragossa. It's open to the public. And a 1-year-old died after being run over by his father in the Lower Valley yesterday morning. Police say the mother and toddler were by the driver's side of the 27-year-old father's car in their driveway. Unbeknownst to the parents, the couple's other child was also in the driveway and was run over. I'm Erica Castillo with his KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
From the CBS 4 Warn Weather Center, I'm forecaster Vania Castillo. We are in for a beautiful day here in the borderlands, seeing those temperatures warming up just a little bit. Expect a high of 71 degrees in El Paso, 68 in Las Cruces. We are going to continue to be seeing this warming trend sticking around here in the borderland. Going to be seeing those temperatures in the 80s for your weekend, though. Could be seeing a little bit of wind, though, as well. Just something to be mindful of as you start looking forward to making those weekend plans.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. At Lowe's, every pro is an MVP to us. MVP's Pro Rewards members visit Lowe's now and earn bonus points on products and brands like DeWalt. Then redeem for Lowe's e-gift cards and more. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees. After applicable discounts, if any. Subject to program terms. Visit Lowes.com/MVP bonus points for details. Now through 10/28.
I'm Jack Myers, host of the Legends and Leaders podcast at Media Village. The one constant truth leaders share is the importance of a diverse workforce. That's why MediaVillage.com is hosting Black Talent Outreach Week, October 17th through 20th. Register free and apply at MediaVillage.com for jobs in advertising and media. And view my conversations with Byron Allen and other leaders at legendsleaders.org.
Catch the show in the sky and help support the fight against cancer with the 4th annual Flight to Fight Cancer Research Awareness Fly-In on October 29th at the Doña Ana International Jetport, hosted by Francis Aviation and the War Eagles Air Museum, and powered by News Radio 690 KTSM and Sunny 99.9. Kicking off at 10 a.m. with skydiving, air demonstrations, car shows, food, vendors, music, and much more. Tickets $10 at the door or on Eventbrite. Children 12 and under get in free. Follow the Flight to Fight on Facebook and Instagram at Cancer Flight. Recognized by the American Cancer Society and a Relay for Life team. Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Under Governor Abbott, Texas leads the nation in creating jobs. Law enforcement officers are respected and funded, and Governor Abbott is fighting to secure the border. Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming, through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Keep the comments going on over there as well. Pop them up as relevant, and of course delve more into them as we do throughout the rest rest of the show. Phone lines open here in just a bit. But in the meantime, of course, we are joined still here in studio by Stephanie Cipher, an investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14. Thanks for sticking around with us.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
So we have been talking about a lot of issues in your investigative reporting. And of course, one of the ones that keeps coming up is, of course, UMC, the bonds, the potentials there. And of course, we're talking about potential future elections that it may be on, certain restrictions that now, because of the petition that was accepted and verified, has now been placed on that process, can no longer move forward as a certificate of obligation bond, aka non-voter approved, has to go onto a ballot next. What ballot that goes on to is kind of the question. But don't want to lose sight of the fact that there are a number of other bonds that are going to be on this November ballot, at least 3 distinct entities and a bunch of parts even within those, on even just within the county of El Paso on the docket here. And we're talking about just over about $500 million all totaled. Again, just the county of El Paso and the entities within it.
Right. So one of them is the city. The city is looking to basically get a bond for street improvements. And this is something that when I interviewed city manager Tommy Gonzalez a few weeks ago, he had mentioned that when he stepped into the role of city manager, one of the things that constituents or, El Pasoans would go to City Hall about would be issues with streets, with potholes, with residential areas. And that it continues to be something that people constantly bring up. And so that's essentially a little bit in part why they're moving with this bond. And he says it's something that El Pasoans are asking for and that El Pasoans have always asked for. And so it is broken up into different parts, I believe, and how the money is being divided there.
Those 3 different movements of it. Proposition A, so it's listed as propositions on the ballot for those within the city of El Paso once you go to see it, or can go and see it over right now on epcountyvotes.com. $246,480,000 for street improvements, sidewalks, streetscapes, and traffic controls and planning. Proposition B, $20,800,000 for general obligation bonds for parks and recreation facilities, and Proposition C, $5.2 million for renewable energy and resource use efficiency improvements, including and of course taxes along with that. So rough calculations here, about $272.5 million. Sum total on the city side of the ballot here.
Right. And we're also going to expect to see, well, some people, depending on where they live, could also see a bond from the Canutillo Independent School District. And I don't know if y'all remember, but this was something that a few years ago they had also tried passing a bond, which did not pass. And so this looks like it's another attempt to get this bond issued this time around.
Absolutely there. And that one, again, broken into 2 propositions of about $255.7 million for school facilities, purchase of land and schools and school facilities. And then the second part of it, refunding all or portion of principal interest on previously issued debt obligations of about $8.4 million. So just the running total here to keep it in mind that we're looking at about between that and the city of El Paso, about $536.6 million so far, what we talked about on the ballot. And so that's the renewed Canutillo bond. We have talked about them previously in the previous incarnations. That was about $180 million on its own back at that point, again, broken up into those 2 different portions as some requirements by state law for independent school districts. And so with that, the renewed version of this coming up, we've had some discussion. And of course, that will be going to voters, but that's not even the only amount of school bonds that are on our ballot as well.
Right. So there's also San Elizario ISD that's looking to pass a bond as well.
And again, that one of about $24.5 million on its own for school facilities is what is listed there. So leading to a grand total, again, within El Paso County of the taxing entities that have things on the ballot this time around of $561.1 million. So just over $500 million on the ballot. So you're not going to have all of these amounts on your individual ballots, but particularly those in Northwest El Paso, still getting used to that phrase, are going to be potentially seeing both of the, city and Canutillo bonds on there. So quite a lot of decisions to be made, even beyond just the candidates, of which there are also a lot.
Yes, so voters are definitely going to have to go to the polls educated, just because there's so much and it could be very overwhelming.
Oh, yes.
Once you go and you see the ballot, if it's your first time seeing the ballot when you go vote, it will be very overwhelming. So, I mean, it's always important to just glance over the sample ballot, which you can find on epcountyvotes.com. And so, or is that let me get you the correct
That is
website
correct.
there.
epcountyvotes.com.
Yeah,
I
there we
practically have
go.
it tattooed on my forehead at this point here. It's definitely the correct one, and where you can go and see this. Or you can also request information for those not online from the El Paso County Elections Department if you want to find out more information, because, again, being informed and knowledgeable about these things is important. Of course, they are down at the El Paso County Courthouse downtown. So if you want to find out more about that, please be informed about this and know what exactly is going on. And of course, election day coming up here, early voting actually starting on the 24th. So make sure that you are paying attention to that. And again, if you want more information, the number to call there, providing that right now, 915-546-2154. Again, for the El Paso County Elections Department, 915-546-2154. And of course, joining us here in studio, we do, of course, have a Stephanie Cipher, an investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14. Again, just to further delineate what we have just talked about, start of this segment, those are what are going to be on your ballots this coming November. So again, starting start of next week with early voting beginning, and then, of course, Election Day happening November 8th, in which we will be bringing you live and local election coverage through decent chunk of the night. We're not going to go to like the bitter end, but through when we can determine a lot of what the results are looking like through at least 9 or 10 o'clock that day. Stay tuned for more details. And of course, our news partners at KFOX 14 will be running totals throughout the night as well. But in the meantime, some other important issues that have been going on, not on the ballot exactly in this case, but could will impact future ones. In the district attorney's office and the circumstances surrounding this, a new development happening. And when it comes to what is going on with the case dismissals, we had mentioned earlier this week and even a little bit earlier today about how there are another few hundred, 400 and change, I do believe, that are being sought dismissed by the El Paso County Public Defender's Office for lack of prosecutorial action, essentially. That not action had happened within 180 days. Therefore, under certain provisions of Texas law, for certain, again, misdemeanors or low-level felonies, they had to be dispensed with or dismissed. And so of the 400, again, or some odd that were being sought, 123 were dismissed earlier this week. But there's more wrinkles to this as well.
Right. And it feels like we have our reporters there, if not on a weekly, on a daily basis, just because this is changing so often, or we're getting new developments to this story almost on a daily basis. And so the latest story that our reporter Jennifer Cuevas posted yesterday, which is called Judge Dismisses 123 Cases in Referral Court, Issues Arise in Court, basically details how there seems to be a change in how this is being handled. Now, the DA's office seems to be, actually addressing the cases that were being dismissed, but there also seems to be a bit of conflict between the DA's office and the public defender. And so a lot to digest, but it's all, laid out in this web story into how they're addressing these cases and what they're doing with regards to trying to get, this process, basically get through it.
So, I mean, proactive would be the ideal way for the district attorney's office and the handling of these cases to be, with them all being moved forward through, expediently, and those kind of phrases that we like to use whenever we're talking about the legal process that sometimes don't actually end up happening. But I would say that I don't think we're, at least by my reading of, again, these circumstances, again, the web story people can find over on kfoxtv.com, not necessarily totally proactive yet, but reactive in its own right. And one of the questions and comments actually being made by the public defender, Kathy Childress, is that this is something that is being happening where they're now focusing on the cases as they are being presented to be dismissed, either with action, final dispensation of them, or more specifically, that they are actually saying that once they're brought up in this way, we will then take action on it. Quoting directly from the district attorney's office trial team chief of the intake division, Douglas Tiemann, saying that we are a prosecutor, and if you shine a light on a case for us, we're going to look at it, and we did so with every one of these. So again, just to difference of what has been happening with the 900 some odd roughly that were dismissed previously, in which the district attorney's office has said previously, we will refile these if necessary. Again, reacting to these filings in a different way seems to be the kind of wrinkle we're looking at this week.
Right. And on Friday, there also seemed to be a disconnect between, the DA's office and the public defender, in which the public defender did send us a statement saying, this would all be resolved if the DA's office would work with me instead of working behind my back. So it really does seem like there is some sort of communication issue happening, which is what appears to have played out during this hearing or court yesterday. So we are expecting, just like the UMC story, for this to also continue to be a story that we will continue to follow, because we're expecting a lot more developments to come from this.
Absolutely. I mean, all the things involved with the district attorney's office, we have been trying to break down as best we can, but there's a lot of moving parts here. So we'll be doing the same, absolutely, and checking further in again with our news partners there at KFOX 14. Again, if people want to get a hold of you for any of the other stories, particularly the in-depth ones, things that need a little bit more investigating and time, so to speak, to just be worked on with it, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you, Stephania?
They can email me at eyseyffert@kfoxtv.com. Some people have reached out through social media, which is fine as well. I just ask for patience. I know some of you messaged me and you caught me in the middle of a lot of traveling, but I do see those messages and I am working on these stories. Even if you don't see them on air, it doesn't mean that there isn't movement happening behind the scenes.
I mean, with FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act, and other things like that, it can take a while. So, the bake setting is on for a lot of these. And mentioning the travel, of course, people may have noticed on your social media that you were out of the area yesterday, kind of briefly, but very significantly.
Yes. So KFOX 14 Investigates was on assignment out of town. We went to Dallas, and it's for a story that's, I guess, part of a continuation of some stories that I've worked on with regards to the drugs that are being seen in El Paso, particularly fentanyl. I did a story as well on Narcan and how, officials think that that's something of a first aid medication that everyone should have available, in their homes, in their car, on them, just because of how much, they're seeing an increase in fentanyl. We had mentioned how El Paso used to be a pass-through city for drugs, but now they're actually seeing drugs staying here. And so, this story took me to Dallas, but it's still very local. It's still relevant to El Paso. And so you'll probably be seeing that in the next couple of weeks. And I'm excited to share more when I'm able to about what that story was about.
Absolutely here. So again, updates on social media like that. And we'll, of course, have your contact information and social media posted over on our socials here. But again, joining us in studio right now has been Stephania Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14. Thank you very much for coming by to chat with us about your investigative work and the other big stories going on, as we do most Wednesdays here today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we got to take that next break now. So coming out of this break, go ahead and open up those phone lines as we do at this point during the program. So if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, the number to dial there. Again, getting to more of the comments, more of the discussion going online as well. We've been popping some of those up on screen, and we'll delve into some of those on air as well coming after this. So keep that going. And again, get on that line one more time, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso freeways are pretty stop and go right now. I-10 eastbound is slow from the downtown exits, Campbell Avenue to Geronimo. 13-minute delays due to a stalled semi-block in the right lane just past Geronimo Drive on-ramp on I-10 eastbound. 11-minute delays on eastbound on Liberty Expressway between the 54 Gateway and the Loop. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Under Governor Abbott, Texas leads the nation in creating jobs. Law enforcement officers are respected and funded, and Governor Abbott is fighting to secure the border. Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
KTSM and Southwest University invite you to the More You Know Expo, Sunday, October 23rd at Ascarate Park. Event is free for the entire family, plus register for your chance to win tickets to the Dallas Cowboys and other giveaways. Enjoy food trucks, live performances, face painting, inflatables, and more. Complete details at KTSM.com. The fun starts at 10 a.m. with the station that puts local first. KTSM 9 News.
As the leaves change, leave the hiring to Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all from one place. And Indeed's interview tool lets you schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from their website. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program. You have those phone lines open now, so if you want to get in there, make your comments on the phone line, that is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We are pretty short timing at this segment, so we're going to get any of those calls immediately, but right after the top of the hour news and that upcoming break. So says Austin Redfern chiming in over on the social media. Hello there. And Sean Gardner and a lot of commentary going back and forth here. And again, you're entitled to listen to or not listen to what you want to, but we're definitely getting into the issues. And anytime you're talking about local issues such as taxes and El Pasoans and the things that affect us here, well, hey, that's what we focus on. So if you're bringing in other, put it in a unnecessary legal term, facts not in evidence, as in stuff we haven't brought up on this show, or other commentators, we trust our other national hosts to do their thing, but we do things our own way on this program, which is talking about those local issues. So if you're dialed in for that, you're in the right place. If you're trying to drag in other people such as Alex Jones and others, it's not going to work out well for you, because we're just going to keep moving on. Maria Coleman with an interesting comment as well. A little bit too long to show up on screen. Remember, you can type as much as you want over on our social media, but if it's too long, it won't show up that well. But her saying essentially take the time to research local candidates. Reading political pamphlets, platforms are a good thing, but her point is that just reading those isn't sufficient. To mentioning specifically 2 District 1 candidates, Elisa Cordova-Silverstein and Brian Kennedy, and El Paso Matters, who we appreciate the reporting from them as well. Delving into, they've been doing a lot of deep dive reporting. That's one of the better things that websites and local reporting concerns like them are about, is really digging into the data, because I've definitely looked at some similar ones and noted some similar trends that specifically Maria brings up there, such as specific donations from Paul Foster, former Mayor Margot, and land developer Scott Schwartz, and the Leeser family on the other side of it. So these are important things, and we have delved into those as well. It just doesn't quite make good radio. So we trust our other people in the region, and again, some of our news partners to also delve further into that. But otherwise, we'll, of course, keep it going and keep talking about the important issues affecting us here in the borderland. But we got to take that next break now. So talking more about some of the comments, and also Ida Beza-Gardner, chiming in over there. Hello as well, along with others, Louis Pinato, Sean Gardner, Eric McNabb, Glenn Stewart, again, Maria Coleman has mentioned, RJ, Joey Carlson, Carla Sierra, few others. Then we'll keep getting to those here, particularly the likes and reacts we do appreciate. But got to take that break, make the top of the hour, and all of that, addressing some more of your comments, concerns, and again, those phones, get into those. Again, the number to call there, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso freeways are pretty stop and go right now. I-10 eastbound is slow from the downtown exits, Campbell Avenue to Geronimo. 13-minute delays due to a stalled semi-block in the right lane just past Geronimo Drive on-ramp on I-10 eastbound. 11-minute delays on eastbound on Liberty Expressway between the 54 Gateway and the Loop. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Joe Biden's inflation is crushing Americans. Higher costs for gasoline, painful prices at the grocery store. Just about everything costs us more. And just like Biden, Beto O'Rourke supports higher taxes that would crush Texans even more. What does Governor Abbott say?
In Texas, we are fighting back, cutting property taxes to help homeowners, producing more energy to lower gas prices. and we passed a constitutional amendment to ban an income tax in Texas.
This election, you have a choice. With Beto O'Rourke, it's higher taxes, higher prices, and an economy that's being crushed. With Greg Abbott, it's lower taxes, lower prices, and an economy that's booming.
If you're tired of getting crushed by Biden's inflation, join us and keep Texas strong.
Greg Abbott for governor.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. 3 people are being detained during an investigation into a suspicious vehicle at the U.S. Capitol. On Twitter, Capitol Police urged the public to not be near the area. However, few other details were released. Wall Street is snapping its 2-day winning streak. Liz Warner reports.
The 10-year Treasury yield rose in today's session to its highest level since July of 2008. Meantime, quarterly reports continue to roll in as Tesla beat earnings estimates, but was light on revenue. At the closing bell, the Dow lost 99 points, the S&P 500 fell 24 points. I'm Liz Warner.
Former President Trump is being deposed today in a defamation case involving writer E. Jean Carroll. Carroll accuses Trump of raping her in a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman in the mid-1990s. The former president said Carroll was lying and motivated by money, and Carroll then sued Trump for defamation in New York court. More than $300,000 has been raised for 2 Connecticut police officers killed last week while responding to a domestic disturbance call. The money has been donated to multiple online sites that are collecting cash for the families of Bristol Sergeant Dustin DeMonte and Officer Alex Hamzy. Thanksgiving dinner is going to be more expensive this year. Lisa G. explains.
Turkey prices are 73% higher than last year, and analysts say they could stay that way right through the holiday. It's largely due to the spread of bird flu, which led to a smaller supply. Higher feed costs and a labor shortage also factored into the price increase. The USDA says the cost of an 8 to 16 pound turkey is $1.99 a pound this year, compared to $1.15 last year.
Global carbon dioxide emissions will probably rise by just under 1% this year. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. As residents in Florida rebuild from Hurricane Ian, they have another thing to worry about. Tony Waterman explains.
Flesh-eating bacteria, scientifically known as Vibrio vulnificus, thrives in warm, brackish floodwaters, like that left behind by Ian's massive storm surge. The bacteria enter the body through open wounds and can lead to sepsis. Officials in Florida are urging residents to avoid any standing water and to not eat or drink anything that has touched the floodwaters.
A new poll by Monmouth University finds Americans are divided on whether former President Trump's political presence poses a danger to democracy. While a majority of Americans think Trump should appear before the January 6th committee, they were more evenly divided on whether his continued presence is dangerous to politics. 50% say he poses no danger, while 47% say he does. Staff at a South Carolina airport are implementing a new way of helping the disabled. Scott Kimbler has more.
Some folks have a disability that is not obvious to everyone, but still may need aid. To address these needs discreetly, Columbia Metropolitan Airport will be launching the Hidden Disability Sunflower Program. Watch Fox 57 News reports the in-terminal process allows the disabled to identify themselves to staff, but not bringing unnecessary attention to themselves. Those with a hidden disability can ask staff for a lanyard or bracelet that lets other staff know someone may be in need of added attention.
A city in Wisconsin is officially getting rid of a law against snowball fights. The city council in Sun Prairie, just outside of Madison, voted this week to roll back its decades-old ordinance that included snowballs in the list of things that you cannot throw. One alderman discovered the snowball ban last year while rereading the city's ordinances. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Dollar. That's dollar. Enter it now.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Under Governor Abbott, Texas leads the nation in creating jobs. Law enforcement officers are respected and funded, and Governor Abbott is fighting to secure the border. Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Catch the show in the sky and help support the fight against cancer with the 4th annual Flight to Fight Cancer Research Awareness Fly-In on October 29th at the Doña Ana International Jetport, hosted by Francis Aviation and the War Eagles Air Museum, and powered by News Radio 690 KTSM and Sunny 99.9. Kicking off at 10 a.m. with skydiving, air demonstrations, and much more on the ground. Sponsored by Ray's Federal Credit Union, A&B Labels, Great American Steak Burger on North Yarborough, and Pavalog. Details on Facebook and Instagram at Cancer Flight. Recognized by the American Cancer Society and a Relay for Life team.
You wash your hands, you brush your teeth, but what about the nose? How do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out allergens, mucus, and germs. And it's why cleaning your nose, the body's air filter, is the next evolution in daily personal hygiene. People try Navage for lots of reasons. Sinusitis, colds, allergies, snoring, things that make it hard to breathe through your nose. But over time, they find that cleaning their nose makes them feel better, a lot better. Over 3 million Navage users have written more than 100,000 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars, saying, best product I've ever used, and amazing, I love my Navage. Navage helps you breathe better, sleep deeper, and snore less, but the biggest payoff is improved health. Navage is good personal hygiene and can help you stay healthier. At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Right now, our inventory of new and certified pre-owned vehicles is better than ever. So our goal this month is to break our all-time sales record. We'll do whatever it takes to make a deal.
It's Ram Power Days at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and our savings and inventory are huge. Upside down in your current trade? We want it, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, regardless of make or model. So you can drive home a new or certified pre-owned vehicle for less. For a limited time, get 2.9% APR on the all-new 2022 Ram, or get 0% APR on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating. Plus, we have great financing programs for good credit or less than perfect credit. All military personnel and first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus T10L. 0 APR for 36 months is $27.78 per thousand financed on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
iHeartRadio wants to send you to Seattle to see two legendary bands on the same stage. The Smashing Pumpkins and Jane's Addiction. We'll fly you there, put you up in a hotel, get you premium tickets to the show, plus a VIP package with the signed item. For your chance to win, just open the free iHeartRadio app and listen to the Smashing Pumpkins radio or Jane's Addiction radio, and you'll be automatically entered. It's that easy. Get tickets for the Spirits on Fire tour at LiveNation.com. See the Smashing Pumpkins and Jane's Addiction in Seattle with iHeartRadio.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in on those pages, and I'll try to do a wrap-up of some of the more impacting ones, but y'all going fast and furious out there today, so the Skeptic Squad, or the Savage Squad, as some have requested to be called, definitely out in force. The Thunderdome of comments is happening, and if you want to call in, make your chime in that way. That number to do so is, of course, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And we'll get to more of those calls here in just a second if you want to get on the line there. But some of those tuning in, chiming in, let's just go by the likes and reacts here real quick, because there's I'm going to miss someone otherwise. We have over on the social media, Flaco Jimenez, Calvin Williams, Amber Bond, James Holmes, Ida Beza Gardner, Ion Grimm, Carlos Sierra, Louis Pinado, Sergio Faz, Richard Janasic, Ed Clore, Glenn Stewart, Monaco Cervantes, and Robbie Flores. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree with or even necessarily like the topics we're going through, but if you appreciate having live local talk radio and the ability to discuss these things here in the borderland, go ahead and drop that like, and of course, share, tell a friend, those kind of things, so we can continue having the discussion about the things that affect us here. And just as a kind of technical note or personal note, I guess, anything that is going against being able to discuss things, I fully reject the idea that, well, certain things are not allowed to discuss. I mean, there are certain levels of, like, the right of certain people to exist that is not up for debate in my mind, but everything else about political points, including at least one coming up here, Eric McNabb saying that rejection of more bonds is blind rejection of elections, democracy, and the rule of law. That's quite the logical jump here, saying that someone not wanting more bonds, particularly at this point in time when there has been, concerns about the economy, government spending, those kind of things, as therefore being in opposition to democracy, that's a hell of a claim to be making there. And that specifically saying that all future bonds, you don't care if El Pasoans die or future generations of El Pasoans, kind of makes it seem like you're saying if you don't like bonds, you hate people, like trying to make that kind of a thing. You want to talk about some of those logical fallacies, such as, let's call it like a moving goalpost would be a good one there. That's a hell of a one to be made. And we definitely tried to get to some of these points here, and more chiming in, such as James Ratcliffe, Glenn Stewart, Sean Gardner, Ion Graham, and more. We'll keep those going here. At least one point and one question that was being made. In any case, I mean, yeah, if you're going to try and walk that back, go for it. But otherwise, saying that no one can oppose bonds, come on, that's not reasonable. Also, at least one comment about some of the advertising we have going on. Do want to say this was way earlier, but I did tag this one as one I wanted to at least mention. Let's see who said it here. God, there have been so many comments, dozens if not hundreds by this point. Angel Rodriguez, bigging up the point about political advertising. So just want to make a point about that as a public media entity and putting ourselves out on the airway, we are subject to certain FCC and FEC regulations. There's a combination here, both the Federal Communications Commission and the Federal Elections Commission, in that as something that where we have advertising, we have to make this available to anyone, any qualified candidate has to have the ability to do so. So anything you're hearing, anything that you're seeing is by no means an endorsement of this station or a part of it, but rather anyone that wants to have it has to have the exact same opportunity as anyone else in a similar type of election to be able to do that. So if you want to look at some trends that can be seen from that, yeah, I've definitely been hearing Governor Greg Abbott's and his campaigns and related committees advertising. I've been seeing mostly the O'Rourke campaign advertising. If you want to talk specifically about what we're seeing in the gubernatorial election, those have been primarily online, and the million text messages that I have gotten from that campaign handily outstrips any other of those push notifications, texts, will you campaign, will you come out for us, whatever, those kind of things. That's definitely been the focus and the funding and the spending going on for the O'Rourke campaign, for what it's worth here. So again, some interesting things can be seen from it here. Also, at least I have to mention one other thing, that if you're going to, make sure to, call in and or make comments and say, why aren't we paying attention to this? Make sure you're paying attention to what we're talking about. Specifically, Joey Carlson a little bit earlier saying that, I'm missing the right one because he went on for a little bit here, but saying specifically that us not talking about the amount of money being spent here in El Paso, that we're ignoring things like that. There's too many different comments going on here, but seriously, there we go. $300,000 a day of tax money wasted, and yet Andrew ignores it, from Joey Carlson a little bit earlier. You would have known we were talking about that yesterday, the day before, even before that. Some of the fact centers that are coming out from the city of El Paso, they've pegged at about $250,000 per day being spent on the migrant crisis, and we do a pretty regular check-in on that. So just saying, if you're saying, why aren't you talking about this? Make sure that we aren't actually talking about it, among other things. And jeez. Anyway, if you really, I'm also just going to say that telling me not to argue about something is about the surest way I'm going to argue it. I'm not picking on you, Ion, specifically, but let's just say I feel very confident in holding my own on the areas we talk about, because I tend not to want to talk about things that I don't feel like I have a good basis of understanding for, because, well, that's when you can have the trip-ups and other things, but yeah, we'll definitely be getting to it. And so it's always hilarious when I'm getting accused of shilling for the extreme right and the extreme left at the same time. But we'll keep doing what we do, because what I will say is I won't let what people are saying about the way we talk about things influence. I mean, I do take criticism, and we'll continue to do that, but otherwise we'll still keep talking about the things that I think are important here in the borderland. So let's get to the phone lines now. I've gone on for a minute. We do have Frankie and Messi on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
Wow, I got to tell you something. I called, and all of a sudden, I hear the most gorgeous, mellifluous voice ever. I think you got your call screener back. And that was just a wonderful surprise right out of the box. I was so excited just to hear her voice. Anyway, let me say something. This guy, this Orange Julius, went and lied. This is breaking news, by the way, on an official federal document under oath, and he's in deep doo-doo. Now, having said that, I have always been totally against this nonsense about executive privilege. I don't care if it's Democrat, Republican, Independent. First off, evil happens behind closed doors in the dark. Now, what in the world is a president and his advisors saying that is so horrible that nobody can ever hear? That is it just blows my mind. That should not happen, even under the aspects of executive privilege. Whatever you're saying that is so horrible that nobody can listen to it because you want to claim it under executive privilege, this is terrible stuff. Because I told you before, evil happens behind closed doors in the dark. And that's my initial rant right out of the box.
In general, I will agree that sunlight is the best disinfectant, particularly when it comes to issues of, say, government corruption and other issues like that. But also to say that, immediately assume that because something doesn't want to come out, therefore it must be bad is kind of a misnomer in my mind here. And just to address what you said at first there, referring to the former president being deposed in a suit involving writer E. John Carroll as part of that, with some accusations stemming from sexual assault in the mid-1990s, separate from some of the other ones and other depositions and summons that have been issued there. But really, again, on the specific idea of executive privilege here, to assume that it's immediately hiding something, like, I get it. You got your opinion on the individual we're talking about here. And also in general, I do find myself concerned with the level of power that is being centralized within the executive branch of this country. The founding fathers more or less set up a system where they assumed that each branch would want to keep its own power intact, but unfortunately, if they had one major oversight that they made, it was not accounting for the idea of political parties, for essentially collusion between different branches of government to serve otherwise political goals. They essentially set it up a system where it would be that the essential selfish demands and ideas of any individual person would want them to not cede power where they would no longer control it, but again, didn't account for the fact that deals could be made outside of just the bounds of office, political parties essentially. So beyond that and beyond the concerns with that, assuming that it's going to be bad is, like, again, I get where you're coming with that, but I have to say there's plenty that I can imagine coming out of any executive branch discussions that would be something that probably shouldn't be released publicly. Let's take, for example, one thing we brought up, nuclear launch codes, troop movement, strategic planning, major strategic deals such as the AUKUS deals that were made between the United States, the UK, and Australia for nuclear submarines. Those things coming out immediately and fully in detail publicly could do serious, in that case specifically, strategic damage to the United States and its interests. So yes, I do believe that there have been abuses of power in the executive branch in general when it comes to, again, the centralization of power. But to say that everything, therefore, that falls under specifically executive privilege is therefore awful, yeah, I'm not quite following you down that road.
No. I'm not talking standard, justifiable aspects such as national security. Okay, for sure. You don't want that stuff to be set out. I'm talking nefarious, nutjob, talking stupidity, where they're trying. I'm talking about like Tricky Dicky Nixon back there in 1970. The missing 18 minutes. Come on, don't tell me that 18 minutes did not have the most deleterious, damaging, nutsy stuff that you could ever think about. Nothing. Also, let me say, how you coming along with asking Gabe and Yvette and Michelle and how's that coming along?
Well, okay, we had some announcements coming up later, but since you ask, I can say that we are going to be early next week on the show doing an interview with Yvette Harrell, again, the Republican incumbent representative for the New Mexico 2nd Congressional District, and more is in the works, I can say that much.
Woohoo! All right, way to go. And again, I love that call screener. Keep her on the radio. I don't care if you have to spend extra money. I love the voice. I love her sound. I love her action. I love her whole stick on how she answers the phone. She's a wonderful addition to your program.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll be forwarding your contact information to our management on that point about payment. Thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good one there. I mean, we do what we can with the resources we're given here. And, I mean, okay, yeah, Nixon was a particular example, and not a whole lot of lessons should be taught from, again, use of power within office from particularly that administration. Not saying that there weren't other things that, I mean, there's good and bad that happens with every administration, and there as much as I wasn't raised to believe this, not that I wasn't like remember Nixon is evil, but like very much popular themes that go along with it. There were some things such as like the opening of China and the relations restoration there that were, well, maybe there's been some movement on that interpretation modernly, but to call it 100% bad out of any particular administration or things, unless someone is actively accidentally blowing up all the nukes in the silos here in the U.S., I'm going to call that probably something good could have happened from that administration. Anyway, there are comments coming in here, including wanting me to, man, if you've got a question, if I actually care about the Constitution and wanting investigation to happen, again, I'm going to need to pay a little bit more attention because I've been calling for that pretty consistently throughout, whether you call what this is happening within Congress as an actual investigation, rather that being political consequences, which, again, not even like a line or a hot take I'm trying to take. It's literally the definition of what is happening there. So just saying, make sure to pay attention to what we're talking about here. And Calvin Williams, well, again, you could always call in yourself if you want to here, saying, according to Frankie, the best voice at KTSM 690 is the one we can't hear unless we call in. Well, as a reminder there, you can call in. Again, that number to do so if you want to is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. So let's get back on track. We'll go back to those calls and not cut anyone short. So if you're on the line, stay there. If you want to get on the line, again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM to hear that Lewis voice. But I back up this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
19-minute delays on the I-10 eastbound between Campbell and Geronimo Drive after a semi is blocking the right lane. I-10 eastbound just past the Geronimo Drive on-ramp. Expect some major delays on the I-10 eastbound this afternoon through the Spaghetti Bowl. Spur 601 eastbound from the 54 Gateway over to the Loop. That's a 10-minute delay. And we got a crash George Dieter northbound at Vista del Sol. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Under Governor Abbott, Texas leads the nation in creating jobs. Law enforcement officers are respected and funded, and Governor Abbott is fighting to secure the border. Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Stanton Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Right now, our inventory of new and certified pre-owned vehicles is better than ever. So our goal this month is to break our all-time sales record. We'll do whatever it takes to make a deal.
It's Ram Power Days at Stanton Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and our savings and inventory are huge. Upside down in your current trade? We want it, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, regardless of make or model. So you can drive home a new or certified pre-owned vehicle for less. For a limited time, get 2.9% APR on the all-new 2022 Ram, or get 0% APR on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating. Plus, we have great financing programs for good credit or less than perfect credit. All military personnel and first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Stanton Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Stanton Park Drive or online at StantonParkDodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus T10L. 0 APR for 36 months is $27.78 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
KTSM and Southwest University invite you to the More You Know Expo, Sunday, October 23rd at Ascarate Park. Event is free for the entire family, plus register for your chance to win tickets to the Dallas Cowboys and other giveaways. Enjoy food trucks, live performances, face painting, inflatables, and more. Complete details at KTSM.com. The fun starts at 10 a.m. with the station that puts local first. KTSM 9 News.
Here's a message just for the attorneys out there. So you passed the bar, joined a firm, or even built your own. Now are you finding out that you're doing more administration than actual law practice? Lexicon can help. Lexicon is a legal technology provider with over a decade of experience streamlining administrative tasks like timekeeping, billing, and more, so you can focus on maximizing billable hours and increasing client satisfaction. Call 855-4-LEXICON or visit lexiconservices.com/go to learn more.
Hey, listener. Welcome to Limu's Karaoke Lounge, where Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need, and the music never stops. Hit it.
There's an emu with a full-time job. His partner's Doug, but Limu's the heartthrob. Grubs and worms, that's what Limu eats. Gotta fuel up to save you money and hit the streets.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Get ready for the smartest bundle in streaming. 6 streaming services for the intellectually curious, featuring Curiosity Stream with the best collection of documentary films and TV shows, Psalm TV, and great stories from the world of wine, Tastemade for the fun side of food and travel, Topic with the best thrillers and crime stories, and so much more. From nature to history, technology to food, mystery to adventure. Get 6 streaming services for one low price at less than $6 a month. It's the best deal in streaming. Learn more and sign up now at smartbundle.com.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Leave your comments on most of those. Twitter, again, was more of a DM, responding to tweet kind of thing. Can't put it up on screen quite the same way, but hey, if you want to follow us over there, we do try to pay attention to the messages and stuff coming in from there, so just let us know what you want to know. And more comments coming in, including again, facts not evidence, my dude. If I was a judge, I'd be throwing out what you're talking about here. That saying Alex Jones and Fox News have convinced you that this isn't an investigation. Wasn't your first hand listening to the hearings or of the conclusions of it. In fact, it was. May not have listened to every damn second of them, but yes, listen to the hearings and allow the coverage around them. And might surprise you that didn't listen to Alex Jones. He's not a something I follow particularly, or Fox News on it. Don't even have cable, my dude. So to say that these are the bases of it here and throwing it out there, essentially what it comes down to, or the idea that no one could have principled reasons for disagreeing with you, that I'm assuming hasn't served you that well in life here. I mean, you sound like you're real fun at parties to begin with, but the idea that someone could come to different conclusions with you and not be evil or wrong or influenced unduly, those kind of things, just it doesn't bear out in reality. That's why I'm encouraging the discussion of things, because when you banish topics from the discourse, you're not allowed to talk about that except for some very, and I do mean very important examples, such as basic human rights. It doesn't really solve the issue now, does it? It just puts it in the dark corner where it then festers. Again, sunlight is a great disinfectant in a lot of ways, and dragging discussions into the sunlight is what we're going to keep doing on here. So then Joey Carlson saying, listen, dude, I'm not going to be storming city council if that's what you're asking for here, saying do something. We're certainly going to keep talking about the issues, and we've talked about the city about this previously, and of course going to continue discussing what's going on with the migrant response here. So we're going to keep on top of it, but we're expecting us to I saw them searching for that magic wand to allow me to fix all the issues we talk about. So if you've got a line on it, let me know. In any case, getting back to those phone calls right now, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM do have a lot of comments coming in and calls in the line. They're full up at the moment, so let's get to Barbara on the west side with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mhm.
This morning I was doing some stuff and I looked up the TV and there was Claudia Rodriguez on my screen. She was being interviewed on Fox, and she reiterated that Mayor Leeser told her via private telephone conference that the White House had told him not to declare a state of emergency. Well, at the end of the program, Dana Perino interviewed Mayor Leeser, and she also asked him, did the White House ask you not to declare a state of emergency? That's the only question that he answered, the 7 to 10, that was answered, because everything else he ran around the bush. But on this one, he said, absolutely not. So he's either calling Claudia Rodriguez, I don't want to say what he would call her, but basically telling us that she was being dishonest on national TV. Or he was being dishonest on September 27th when he told City Council that Escobar asked him not to declare a state of emergency because the White House, blah, 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 will continue working with us if he didn't. Or he was lying today. I mean, you don't know what's true or not anymore. And one thing that we haven't discussed regarding September 27th, that article, is a statement by Samaniego. And he says in that article, but the following day, El Paso County, this is what he said. The mayor and I backed off. We found out that there's very little difference between the funding we're getting now and the funding that we would get if we went up to the governor and the governor sent it to President Biden. Well, that sounds like an open records request. I wonder what, conversation they had and what factors were in that conversation to lead them to believe to stay on the path that we're going on. So I did a little bit of research. Oh my gosh. I got in and I found the September 27th City Council meeting today. And these three council women have legitimate questions and concerns regarding why aren't we getting a state of emergency. And DeAgostino, I gave him credit for being proactive. And one of the things that I found out is that we have approximately 125 city employees reassigned to help with these illegal immigrant surges. And he keeps telling the city, one of the things that we cannot recoup is the time and money of the relocation and the time that the projects are losing because we don't have employees to follow through on things. And what I gathered from that meeting is our mayor has dug his heels in. He will not listen to reason from what I got of that meeting, because these girls, one of them said, basically what the premise that we're working on is hope and promises. We have nothing in writing. There's nothing that can assure us that we're going to get our money back. And then our city manager said that we've been perfectly honest with El Paso citizens. We are going to lose money. If we order 400 meals, they told us they're going to release 400 people. We order 400 meals and only 200 show up. We've lost the money for those 200 meals that we prepared. So we will be losing money. So it doesn't make any sense that the mayor is so stuck on this phrase, we need to treat them humanely and with respect and treat them how we want to be treated. Well, I would like for him to have some consideration for those of us who are paying taxes and treat us with respect, because I haven't heard him say anything about us other than he keeps saying, and he said it very forcefully, we are not using the taxpayer money. This is not the taxpayer's money. And I'm thinking, well, whose money is it? And he's just insistent on, it's not our money that they're using. It's not our money that they're going to lose. It's not our money that's floating the government right now. And I believe Rodriguez, he told her that the White House told him not to do this. I believe that Escobar told him not to do this. So everything he said today on national TV, in my opinion, was dishonest. And another thing is, we have, like DeAgostino said, we have to be proactive. We can't wait till the numbers change and then get into gear. Well, they leaked a memorandum for heads of executive departments and agencies. And that includes the DOD and the Pentagon. And they're asking for 60-day people to volunteer for 60-day deployments to our borders to do miscellaneous household deeds. They're going to be retrieving, tagging, bagging, sealing, storing of illegal immigrants' personal items. They want them to distribute food and water. They want them to hand out clothing, blankets, and personal items. They want them to retrieve and go pick up medicine and prescriptions or whatever it is there is. And other menial duties, they said, like sweeping, cleaning refrigerators, picking up trash. So this is not going to stop. And our city manager said that he compared this to COVID, and I'm thinking, how can he make that comparison? We're talking about hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants coming to our border, not knowing when and not knowing what we need and how we're going to prepare for that influx. So he makes false comparisons when he's trying to say, well, we had COVID under control. Well, he was dealing with U.S. citizens. He was only dealing with El Paso County. He wasn't dealing with illegal immigrants from 149 countries coming to our front door. So they have this all. He says, we've got this under control, and I promise you things will go well. And I'm thinking, oh, my Lord, that's a big promise to make that you can't keep. But that's what he said at this meeting. So El Paso, think about who you go vote for. Oh, and I received a community progress on the 3 propositions, ABC. At this point in time, with inflation so high, the Fed's going to raise the interest rate again in December. We have no business, the city has no business asking the residents, asking us to approve these bonds. And I say vote no on all 3 of them. Vote no. One of them, Proposition C, is so vague it's going to end up in lawsuits. Proposition B, they don't know how to pick park and recreation projects that are beneficial to the city or the citizens or the kids. And A, we can live another 2 years of potholes, is what I say, or put dirt in them. But vote no. Thank you, Andrew.
Sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. All right, have a good one there. I mean, the propositions, I think, will have a lot of focus on its own on the ballot here, but since it's not candidates, it's hard to get in like someone to interview specifically about that. That's why we're probably going to keep mentioning them again. Roughly, well, more than $500 million of public funds just on some of the ballots here in El Paso County. Again, City of El Paso, Canutillo ISD, and again, do believe it was Sanelli ISD have a lot of them on there. So it's worth paying attention to know what you got to be voting on. So again, if you got any questions about what is going to be on your ballot, epcountyvotes.com is a very good place to go and check it out for yourself. Or again, phone number for that here is, I don't have it in front of me, so tell you what, let me get back with you all about that next segment. Got to take that next break. So coming out of this break, we got callers in the line. We'll get to those, and we got more comments coming in, and we'll, of course, keep checking in on those. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with a KFOX 14 News Update. The funeral mass for Jacob Arellano, a police officer from Dallas who was killed last week, happened in Richardson, Texas this morning. Arellano died on October 12th on his way to work in a wrong-way crash by a suspected drunk driver. The 25-year-old is from El Paso, where he played football in high school and in college. He leaves behind a fiance, a young son, mother and father, and 3 siblings, including an identical fraternal twin brother, who is also a police officer with the Dallas Police Department. Arellano will be brought to El Paso. A funeral mass is scheduled Friday at 11 at the St. Peter's and Paul Catholic Church in Socorro, followed by burial at Mount Carmel Cemetery on Saragosa. It's open to the public. A 1-year-old died after being run over by his father in the Lower Valley yesterday morning. Police say the mother and toddler were by the driver's side of the 27-year-old father's car in their driveway. Unbeknownst to the parents, the couple's other child was also in the driveway and was run over. I'm Erica Castillo with his KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Stop-and-go traffic exists on the I-10 eastbound between Campbell and Geronimo with 17-minute delays after a stalled semis blocking the right lane just past Geronimo Drive on-ramp. I-10 westbound from the Loop to the Patriot, it's a 13-minute delay. On the Spur eastbound from the 54 Gateway over to the Loop, it's a 6-minute delay. And an accident's reported Global Reach northbound at Montana Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS 4 Warn Weather Center, I'm forecaster Vania Castillo. We are in for a beautiful day here in the borderlands, seeing those temperatures warming up just a little bit. Expect a high of 71 degrees in El Paso, 68 in Las Cruces. We are going to continue to be seeing this warming trend sticking around here in the borderland. Going to be seeing those temperatures in the 80s for your weekend, though. Could be seeing a little bit of wind, though, as well. Just something to be mindful of as you start looking forward to making those weekend plans.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Under Governor Abbott, Texas leads the nation in creating jobs. Law enforcement officers are respected and funded, and Governor Abbott is fighting to secure the border. Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean, Mike. Gotta go.
Eee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Under Governor Abbott, Texas leads the nation in creating jobs. Law enforcement officers are respected and funded, and Governor Abbott is fighting to secure the border. Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages up on the, well, all the places we're up online these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of different comments coming in there. We've been putting up a decent representation of them, but, well, they go fast and furious, and a lot of things coming in, including James Radcliffe commenting, saying that in the interview from Mayor Oscar Leeser that we're discussing there, at least previous caller brought up, saying Leeser also mentioned that over 50% of the migrants coming into El Paso were from Venezuela. Don't think that's true, disagreeing with that factor of it here. May not be the factor that they are the ones coming in here, but I think it's the one that's well, at the very least, the ones causing the most issues for when it comes to city management of it. I think that's part of it here. So let's go back to those calls now. Again, the number to call 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do believe we have here on the line with us, do believe we have Raul in the Northeast, if we got him on the line there. Do believe we have. So, Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, you know what affects El Paso? Our local government, city and county politicians, it's large political campaign contributions from the few El Pasoans who have money to give to politicians, and they have interests in the community, business interests and so forth. And what it results in is, in my experience, and I've been around for a while, I've helped politicians in their campaign, spoken on behalf, campaigned for them, knocked doors on them. It essentially results in a kind of a plutocracy in El Paso. And, one of my friends looked into this, Dr. Kathy Stout, retired UTEP political science professor, who's done the research that shows what I'm talking about. It's right there for everyone to see if they want to see it. And then we see the effects here. Those plutocrats can always buy enough politicians to get the policies they want. And thus you get corporate welfare for the rich boys and their toys, like the money-losing ballparks. No one that I know.
I think we lost Raul there. Again, if you're calling into the show, make sure that you're going to be on a good quality, stable line with us, because the call drops in your own. There's not much we can do, unfortunately, and we do take all of the calls here. So I think what he's referring to there is, at least in part, Kathy Stout, previous guest on the show, who has talked about and has the publication through one of the coalitions. The name escapes me at the moment, but the book titled "Who Rules El Paso?" and delving into political contributions. And that's a little bit of what Joey Carlson was posting up later, and that we've also discussed, is the different campaign contributions that have been given to specific campaigns. Oh, actually, sorry, Joey Carlson was talking about a different thing. That was Maria Kalman. Credit where it's due, bringing that up, that, the amount of and who is donating to certain campaigns and things like that. It's why it's worthwhile, if a bit tedious for the average person, to delve into these documents. They are freely available. Just have to kind of know where to look for them specifically. So if you're wanting to see who is doing some real supporting of campaigns, that's one way you can do it. It's available for any campaign, literally. This is considered public information. So if you're very much wanting to know that kind of stuff, please do so. So let's get to another call on the line here. We do have Tony on the west side here with us right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you, Andrew. It must be snowing somewhere in El Paso to think that Raul finally made some sense and stopped seething with his hatred. But that's good, Raul. Keep up the therapy. You're getting better. You're getting better, bro. Now, the reason I called, for a while there, I wasn't even listening, but the last 30 minutes, Andrew, because it's so painful. I mean, the Democrats' evil policies just keep growing and bounds and steps and bounds, whatever you call it. And then the Republicans, they have no idea how to combat the Democrats. They're still using 19th century technology and logic on them. It doesn't work. This is a postmodern era where saving the earth at any cost is a priority, and social justice at any cost is priority, and so forth. So it really is heartbreaking. But one thing, I declared myself as a prophet of God here, trying to save some spirituality out of this city and try to save the souls that already belong to God. And what I did is what the revelation that I got lately is that when there is no such thing as separation of church and state. In other words, as we try to get rid of religion, then state steps into the church. Let me say that again. When you push the church out of the schools and out of our society and out of government, the nature does not allow a vacuum. So the state and its policies start stepping into the church. Example, we got rid of the 10 Commandments and we got rid of prayer in school. At least they do some silent prayer. But that being said, what happens now is the transgender people and transvestites and so forth are now coming into the libraries and teaching their morality to the children. So that's how dumb we are, that we think we're smarter than God. We think we don't need the 10 Commandments. We think we don't need biblical because it's church. We don't want church. We don't want religion. But God will not be mocked. As soon as we get rid of God, which you think is smart, but look who's creeping into your schools. So check out what's happening at your schools and what's being taught and what's already legal. I'll end with this. In California, for example, it's already mandatory that you teach same-sex marriage to children and things like that. So they're being sexualized because you guys are too bored with the 10 Commandments. Thank you, Andrew, for my time.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the point of the call there. I'll agree with you in a limited way that nature abhors a vacuum, and if you remove something, eventually something is going to come in to replace it. So it can be seen kind of demographically and societally over, centuries at this point, or parts of them anyway, what has happened when there has been waning influence of major societal institutions, kind of what you're referring to there, of church institutions. If that has waned a bit, it kind of is a question of then what replaces it, because it's not just going to go away and nothing replace it. So if it comes in to be, other societal organizations, the government, as you're positing there, that can be seen in a variety of ways. But I'll disagree with you on the further point, saying that therefore there can be no religion in schools. I will say that it's probably a good thing that there's no forced religion in schools. Not saying, okay, you have to pray, you have to say these words, otherwise you're going to go to the principal's office. Yeah, that's not going to fly with me. But I've literally attended Bible study in my high school classroom. It was after schools, an after school club kind of thing. So no, I was not being forced or graded upon my reading of the Bible, but it was something that I attended and made the choice to do so. So making so that the choice is available for people to do things. And I'm not saying that I'd ever necessarily send my kid to that you're talking about, like a drag queen story time. That just sounds a little bit weird for me, but I'm also going to draw a fine distinction on the idea of teaching about the fact that same-sex marriage exists is a sexualizing factor. That one isn't going to fly with me either, because saying the fact that like gay people exist, assuming that is a sexualizing factor, I mean, these people exist. You realize that, right? And if you have issues with the way they live their lives, that's kind of between you and them, and not something that government, I feel, really has a part in. Government telling people what to do, I feel like, is a major problem in a lot of ways. Even if you, maybe in a certain way that it happens, might like the outcome of it, that power existing is one that I'm going to continually have issue with. So, tell you what, think we got time for one more quick call. Here we do have Ben on the east side with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if anybody's talked about probably the most important news story in the last 2 days from Boston University.
No, that one hasn't been particularly brought up yet. More Friday territory, but briefly if you can.
Well, okay, the reports on Monday said the school's National Emerging Infectious Disease Laboratories had created a new, deadlier version of the virus. Mm-hmm. Now, Boston University said reports by some publications saying that they had created a new deadly COVID strain are misleading and untrue. And then they said, okay, this is their quote, "First, this research is not gain-of-function research, meaning it did not amplify the Washington State SARS-CoV-2 virus strain or make it more dangerous." Boston University said in a statement, calling online reports Monday false and inaccurate. In fact, this research made the virus replicate less dangerously. So they say evidence that the research was gaining function under both NIAID and our own protocols we would have stopped immediately. But they said this is not gain-of-function research. How do they get along with that when they say they've been studying the Omicron variant and the original strain? They reportedly wanted to see if Omicron, while highly contagious, was still less likely to cause severe illness. Does that sound like gain-of-function to you?
I think there's a distinction here, and just as a continued disclaimer, I am not an epidemiologist. I am not a scientist qualified necessarily to say exactly what kind of work the techniques. I know people who are, but I'm not them. Point is that I think that there's a difference between gain of function of taking something that currently doesn't do anything. I mean, coronaviruses, as much as they exist in nature, to my understanding, and the ability of them to then swap between essentially all the types of diseases that can don't currently, but there's the potential for them to swap between, say, animals and humans. That would be, say, where the gain of function is. The type of this, I remember actually, as weird as a relation as this sounds, reading about this concept back in elementary school in a Choose Your Own Adventure book. The idea of them doing research on diseases that are currently infectious and currently existing within the human population, and essentially making them worse to therefore study what the effects would be. I know it sounds almost, it's like a serious mess around and find out kind of situation, simplest way to put it, but that is essentially what it sounds like. And yes, aware of that coming out of, again, Boston University, as you're talking about there, the idea of, okay, let's make a worse version so we can study what it might do. But then, of course, that leads to the ethical question of, what do you do with it after that? And what happens if an accident happens? So yeah, I'm not saying that I agree with it. It's a good thing, but it is apparently a form of study of particularly virology and epidemiology that has existed. Still has a whole lot of questions that I have about that here. So I tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll tell you what we got coming up for you on the show and squeeze in what we can. So do again, appreciate the point of the call. And we'll be back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690
I-10 eastbound at Geronimo Drive, that earlier semi-blocking traffic has been cleared, but there's still a big backup. I-10 eastbound Wyoming to Geronimo is a 10-minute delay. It's a 16-minute delay. I-10 westbound from the Hunter Viscount exit to the 54 Patriot. El Paso fires responding to a crash I-10 eastbound at Hawkins, and police on the scene of another crash, Rustler Drive southbound at Red. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Under Governor Abbott, Texas leads the nation in creating jobs. Law enforcement officers are respected and funded, and Governor Abbott is fighting to secure the border. Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like,
building looks mediocre.
Designs need a do-over.
or even,
Install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk, from the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building. Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
Catch the show in the sky and help support the fight against cancer with the 4th annual Flight to Fight Cancer Research Awareness Fly-In on October 29th at the Doña Ana International Jetport, hosted by Francis Aviation and the War Eagles Air Museum, and powered by News Radio 690 KTSM and Sunny 99.9. Kicking off at 10 a.m. with skydiving, air demonstrations, car shows, food, vendors, music, and much more. Tickets $10 at the door or on Eventbrite. Children 12 and under get in free. Follow the Flight to Fight on Facebook and Instagram at Cancer Flight. Recognized by the American Cancer Society in a Relay for Life team.
Here's a message just for the attorneys out there. So you passed the bar, joined a firm, or even built your own. Now are you finding out that you're doing more administration than actual law practice? Lexicon can help. Lexicon is a legal technology provider with over a decade of experience streamlining administrative tasks like timekeeping, billing, and more, so you can focus on maximizing billable hours and increasing client satisfaction. Call 855-4-LEXICON or visit lexiconservices.com/go to learn more.
Hey, listener, welcome to Limu's Karaoke Lounge, where Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need, and the music never stops. Hit it!
There's an emu with a full-time job. His partner's Doug, but Limu's the heartthrob. Grubs and worms, that's what Limu eats. Gotta fuel up to save you money and hit the streets.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Bad time here for this program, so we'll have to get to some more of the points here on the line here, including, of course, the idea of sexualization. One comment I want to get to here, RJ asking how about sending a kindergartner home with a self-pleasure assignment for homework? Yeah, no, that would be sexualization, but recognizing the existence of people versus telling a kid to touch themselves, I think you might be able to see the difference between those things here. But in any case, we'll keep, of course, debating these issues and talking about them after the next show. Again, some of the things we got coming up for you tomorrow. Got more of our candidates coming on, and we got a whole lot more discussion going on. That again, some announcements coming on, focusing a lot, of course, on the local elections, the one to be able to vote on here. Gubernatorial, if we can get to it, but definitely some of the congressional races. So that's going to do it for us for today. I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show today. All the comments, all for what they're worth in aggregate. I do appreciate how make this show what it is. So in the meantime, until we're back on air, as we are every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when you're out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Geronimo Drive, that earlier semi-blocking traffic has been cleared, but there's still a big backup. I-10 eastbound Wyoming to Geronimo is a 10-minute delay. It's a 16-minute delay. I-10 westbound from the Hunter Viscount exit to the 54 Patriot. El Paso fires responding to a crash I-10 eastbound at Hawkins, and police on the scene of another crash, Rustler Drive southbound at Red. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Your engine may be trying to tell you something.
Hello? Yeah, under the hood. Mind opening up?
I need a favor. I've been driving you around for years, and I haven't asked for much. Some gas, a little oil, new tires once in a while. But look, I'm feeling a little run down and sluggish. I just don't have that same get up and go. And I'm afraid I might fail my emissions test. I warned you. Didn't you see my check engine light? So here's where you come in. Head to your favorite auto parts store and pick up a bottle of CRC, guaranteed to pass emission system cleaner. Psst, it's in a box.